Do you find me dangerous? Probably not. Today, we're talking about the most dangerous novel writing mistakes that you can make. Today, we're talking about the most dangerous novel writing mistakes you can make. The sort of missteps that put your novel in severe peril. So grab your life vest, review the fire exit diagram one more time, and put on your hearing protection because today is going to be dangerous. Dangerous mistake number 1, not writing solid viewpoints. Writing a good viewpoint is one of those skills that really separates you from yourself. Wait, no, that's not. In third-person limited or first-person perspective, keeping the narrative in the head of a single character is important. The viewpoint character of a given scene is who experiences everything that happens to them and witnesses everything that happens to anybody else. We see their thoughts, and the writing needs to be written in their voice. A solid viewpoint is distinctive. There's a different feeling to how events and experiences happen because we see what's happening to the character versus what's happening to other characters that they're watching or hearing or seeing. This gets dangerous because if you aren't sure how to write a solid viewpoint at a basic level, you run the risk of head hopping and jumping around to different characters within a scene, which is usually not good, especially if you're writing in third limited. At a deeper level, if you don't know how to write a solid viewpoint, if you don't know how to really get into the head of a character and really get the character's voice to come out, you lose a lot of impact in your novel. The characters won't feel as well developed because their viewpoints don't seem distinct. You'll have more distance between the reader and the characters. And because different viewpoints should sound distinct in each chapter or each scene, it gives your writing more variety. A chapter that follows a different character will feel different, and this can be good. If all your viewpoints are kind of vague and they're not really solid and they're not tight to the character, the entire course of your novel is just going to feel kind of the same, and that'll be a bit of a drag. The next dangerous novel writing mistake, not managing commas. For something so little, the comma causes a lot of problems. You can hate the semicolon, but you can also go your entire writing life without ever using one. It's basically like the toothbrush of the grammatical world, or like deodorant, or dandruff shampoo. Unlike the comma, you're probably going to need at least a few of those, and they show up in many different places. Commas are used to separate independent clauses from the rest of a sentence. They are used to separate lists. I enjoy eating cats and macrame versus I enjoy eating cats and macrame. That particular typo is why my last Tinder profile didn't work out. Commas are also used to set off non-restrictive clauses, among other uses. If you want to see all of the ways to use a comma, just Google the 8 common uses of the comma. That's a good breakdown of all the different ways you can and should use a comma. No punctuation mark contributes more to reader confusion than the comma. Nothing affects the flow of prose more than the comma. So make sure you master those curvy little bastards and put them in the correct places. Next dangerous novel writing mistake, confusing dialogue attribution. Knowing who said what is absolutely critical. That's a quote from somebody, I can't remember who. Imagine you have a big impactful line of dialogue that's delivered by, well, the reader isn't really sure. The dangers of this are obvious. If the reader misattributes who says something, then you're on the train to Confusionville rather than Emotional Impact Town. Such a sad place. If you've got more than 2 characters gabbing, if there's a lot of action during the exchange, if you aren't sprinkling in enough attribution, then you run the risk of reader confusion. This is compounded by the fact that most readers aren't likely to be outright confused. They're unlikely to not understand who said a line of dialogue. They're probably more likely just to misattribute the dialogue to the wrong character without realizing. This is a very insidious problem, which is also why it's quite dangerous, because you as the writer probably know better who is speaking than a reader would. So noticing issues with this can be tricky because you have an inherent understanding of who says what in the conversation. Really, I think the best way to find issues with this is through critique partners. they're going to be the best people to find these sorts of issues. If you've got a really complex dialogue exchange, maybe having one of your critique partners go through and actually highlight every line of dialogue with what character they think said it is a good way to make sure that your attribution makes sense. This will help illuminate whether you're both on the same page and get rid of this he said, she said stuff. Also, I think it's probably wise to attribute your dialogue more than you think you need to, because again, the reader is going to be coming into it in a less familiar position than you are. Dangerous mistake number 4, not using chapters to their full potential. How you divide your work into chapters is an important but often overlooked aspect of writing a good novel. Chapter breaks are important because they are often the point where readers put the book down. It's highly likely that someone will stop a reading session at the end of a chapter. It just makes sense to do that. The start of chapters then are also likely a point where they are picking the book back up. There's a delicate balance here of giving enough resolution at the end of a chapter that the reader feels satisfied with the reading session that they just had, but also making sure there is something that is intriguing enough for them to come back to the book. You don't want to close off all of the threads, or the reader is not going to have a reason to come back. It's like if your novel was a campfire, a chapter break should douse the flames enough to provide resolution, but still leave enough embers burning that you can quickly get the fire going again. Remember, only you can prevent forest fires. Well, you and proper management of course woody debris and ladder fuels. Don't just put random chapter breaks at different scenes through your novel. Really think about how the reader leaving at the end of a chapter is going to make them feel. Think about how starting reading at a specific chapter is going to feel, how it's going to get them back into the novel. Think about what threads are left dangling at the end of a chapter. You don't want every single chapter to end with a cliffhanger. That's not always satisfying. So make sure that you have a good balance between resolution and still having lots of things happening so the reader has a reason to come back. And the last dangerous novel writing mistake, being afraid of your novel. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself and improperly doused campfires. The most dangerous thing that will ruin your novel is never writing it. Fear, whether it's of failure, fear of expending effort, or just the fear of not knowing what to do, is often at the root of why most people don't write. Things like procrastination or laziness are often rooted in fear in some way. When you're stuck or struggling to work on a project, always ask yourself, what am I worried is going to happen if I write this scene? What am I worried is going to happen if I sit down and work on this project? What am I trying to avoid? You'll often find that at the root of this is a fear of boredom or a fear of producing something bad, both of which are kind of silly things to fear. I would say that writing a novel or writing a scene, even if it doesn't turn out well, is objectively better for you and the world at large than not writing one entirely. A blank page has never made the bestseller list. A blank page has never wowed people at a writing group. No one has ever felt a sense of accomplishment about the book that they didn't write. I'm sure someday some lit fic author is going to write a completely blank novel and it's going to sell 1 million copies and be this big media frenzy, but you understand what I mean. The most dangerous thing you can do is not write your novel. The biggest risk is not living up to your potential. The biggest danger is not putting the effort in. That's what you should be afraid of. Speaking of things you should be afraid of, we are at the end of this video. I'd love to hear what you think about this in the comments down below. As always, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.